following announcement has been paid for by the
Mark Order.
Hey, this is JayV of the Elite Mark Order coming at you with podcast number 9. Tonight we're going to review Dynamite number 174 from the Nutter Center, Dayton, Ohio, that took place on February 1st, 2023. So tonight it's going to be me, JayV, Cosmic Scott, and we have a new member that's joining us for this show who was actually there, Mongo. So Mongo, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Mongo. I won't go into the whole story of why that's my name. I told it off air, but yeah, I was at the Nutter Center last night and had a hell of a time, and I look forward to talking about the show with you guys.
How often do you go to live shows?
So this was my 4th AEW show in 18 months.
Okay. And what about before that? Were you ever going to WWE or any indie shows?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. So the first show I ever attended was right after my 3rd birthday. It was in 1994 at the yeah, I'm old. The Shelby County Fairgrounds in Sydney, Ohio. Actually, my first WWF show, my cousin and I had looked for literally almost 27 years when we found, no, 28 years. I found the results for it last year. There was no evidence of the show anywhere on the internet. And then last year, I just happened to Google WWF Coldwater High School, Coldwater, Ohio, and lo and behold, there was the card, and there was we remembered bits and pieces of it, right? We remembered seeing Diesel. The main event was Owen Hart and the British Bulldog. We knew that Men on a Mission were there, but the rest of the details were a little foggy. And the second I saw the card, it was boom, all the memories came back of everything else from the show.
It's funny how that stuff can trigger memories, how easily it comes back when somebody shows you, but trying to recall it, it's really difficult sometimes.
My first show was the main event was Andre the Giant and the Junkyard Dog.
Nice.
Facing off against Big John Studd and Ken Patera. So yeah, I'm dating myself there. You're not old. Scott, what was your first main event?
I didn't actually get to go until my 20s, and so that was I won't date myself because I'm in my 50s now, but I will, date myself that way. I will say that it was the era of The Rock, Stone Cold, and basically the tippy top of the Attitude Era in the 90s. So nice. I got to go to a couple of different SmackDowns. One time I brought 3 of my friends. One time I just brought the hardcore friend. And, always had a good time. Had great seats and really enjoyed the atmosphere of a live event. I said that in the Discord. The atmosphere of a live event is so different than anything you can get on television. It really comes across differently. It's a visceral feeling. The reason they have the mats mic'd is so you get that thump, you get that reverberating bass, because you can feel it, and it just the crowd, the interaction. If you're in a good hot territory, the interaction between the wrestlers and the audience, the feedback, it's like a concert. That energy is electric. They never were lying when they said the most electrifying man. He knew what he was talking about in that back and forth sort of just give and take. Like I said, like a concert, there's nothing like that when you're on stage, and that's what they're talking about with wrestling. And I love live events. I haven't been in a long time, but good Lord, it's a thrill. Then, you get some drinking going on with that. Always have a good time.
Yeah,
all right. Go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, I've long said, the worst show you've ever seen is tenfold more enjoyable if you've seen it live. Yep. I went to Over the Limit 2010 in Detroit, which I don't think it won worst pay-per-view in the Observer Awards the year that it happened, but it was top 3, I want to say. Well, and live, I thought that was a great show.
And that's the difference in the way it comes across, and how television really can add a positive element because of the announcers. Jay, I think you were looking at trying to start the segment.
Yeah, I was going to say, the show started with a bang with Hangman versus Moxley. What did you guys think of that match?
Personally, I, of course, knew it was going to be hard-hitting. Again, they went at it. I said it before, I'll say it again. These are 2 men going at it, tong and hammer and tongs. They are just tooth and nail, as Gorilla Monsoon used to say. they don't let up. They hit lariats, not just clotheslines. These guys are unparalleled in some of the violence they bring. And Moxley bled, but clearly this one was hard way because he got hit, and the next thing you know, he's bleeding, and it will not stop till late in the match. I think that the way that things ended was really interesting in keeping the story going and not ending it with one of them having one up. Doesn't matter which one, because now there's going to be another match. And then after that, the pay-per-view, whatever. It's continuing the story, and I thought that was great. The more these guys fight, the more I like it. So have at it, guys. Keep fighting. You know what I mean?
So how did the live crowd enjoy that match, Mongo?
Oh, the crowd was really hot for it. I have to say, though, I was second row in the bleachers. So when that match started and they were crowd brawling, the fans were standing literally the entire match. So there's a lot of stuff I missed.
Yeah.
I actually did not get to see the finish because everybody was standing. I know it was like a roll up of some kind because there was like somebody 2 rows behind me that was really not happy with that finish. But you could hear everything land. Like they really beat the crap out of each other. The stuff that I could see, which was basically almost everything once they got back into the ring. Typically, I could see anything that happened above the like middle rope, basically. And I'm a pretty tall guy, but like being at the bottom of the bleachers at the Nutter Center, that was a life lesson. Never do that again. I thought the like Darce choke superplex type thing Moxley did, as Tom Lawler called it. I thought that was really cool. I kind of expected he was going to do like the Avalanche paradigm shift like he did to Darby back on like the third Dynamite in November of the third Dynamite of November 2019.
It was vicious. That move was vicious. There is no question that would suck. I would not want to take that.
Yeah, so Hangman
looked pretty brutal.
The finish was Hangman went for the bulldog choke, and Moxley kind of spun out of it and then ended up choking out Hangman.
He got the roll up pin, is what.
Oh,
happened.
It was a roll up pin.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
And the way Taz sold it, because he would know as a submission specialist, is don't try a guy's finisher, especially submission, because he's going to know the best counters. And so yeah. I thought that the announce team really sold that well in continuing in why Moxley sort of felt like unfulfilled, because it's like, yeah, don't mess with me. Of course that's my stuff, but I didn't get to keep beating you up. I didn't get to knock you out again. And I think that's why the story continues.
I thought there was someone referenced that the choke into the roll up was actually a finish that was used for the Bola tournament in PWG a couple years ago, and it was the same finish that finished off the Bola tournament. I'll have to find the post, but I thought that was an interesting comment that the finish was a flashback to that. I thought the match was incredible. I think it was one of the best matches, and with just from a move standpoint, there were so many high spots, so many killer moves in this match. You had the Hangman doing an Avalanche DVD that just crushed Moxley.
Yeah.
They exchanged backdrop drivers, and the one that Hangman gave to Mox wasn't too bad. Mox no-sold, and then gave Hangman this wicked suicide backdrop, dumped him right on his head. And then the Hangman's pop-up powerbomb into the table was pretty sweet. And I think another sick move towards the end of the match was where Hangman gave Mox a high-angle fisherman buster, or what's the small package driver?
Yeah, that's what he called it.
It was like a combination of those two moves, and it was just such a great match. It reminded me of the mid '90s All Japan with the impact of some of those huge moves they were doing. It was almost a Kings Road style match, so I loved it. I thought it was great, and definitely looking forward to their next match, and then hopefully a lights out match at Revolution.
I don't know if I want a lights out match, but something has to be like not quite no holds barred, but certainly maybe Falls Count Anywhere. Maybe something that lets them go into the audience a little more, that interact that way. But there's definitely a capper coming at the next pay-per-view. There's no question. And you mentioned the callback to some of the Japanese style, the strong road, and absolutely, they're both Japanese, not trained, but they've got plenty of experience there. They know the Japanese style. They've brought a lot of that really hard hitting to not just this match, but to the entire company, to say the least. So
Yeah, for sure. So, Mongo, where do you think this feud is heading with Hangman and Mox? Do you think they're going to cap it off at Revolution?
I think I think a lights out match kind of that was to me when they did the Hangman knocked out Moxley. I thought the next match was going to be lights out, and then they did this one. I think lights out makes sense just because of the whole like knocking somebody out thing. But they could also do something like knockout or tap out only, which would be a really interesting like kind of
a submission match between two brawlers. Now they both have.
yeah.
I mean, okay, so I haven't seen Hangman use too many submissions. We know Moxley can, primarily because of the BCC training, and he was always great at just wrenching on something. So I don't know that I've ever seen Hangman do a whole lot of submission finishes.
Yeah, I can't recall him making anyone. I can't recall Hangman ever making anyone tap, so it would be a disadvantage for him from that standpoint.
Yeah.
So maybe a last man standing or something along those lines.
Yeah, last man standing actually makes a lot of sense. Because that way they get to just sell. They beat the crap out of each other and still go into the audience and go through the stage and do all that sports entertainment stuff that they can do. Really let them
also
go to it.
The finish is knocking somebody out, right? So it fits right in.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
They can't get up for the 10 count.
Yep. So Cage Match rated it at 8.7, which is pretty good. I think that's low. I would give it a 9. As I said, I think it was one of the best matches in Dynamite history. And it's actually the second highest rated match on the show, I guess I'm not surprised by that. But yeah, great match, great opener.
Mm-hmm.
So from there we moved on to the Bunny challenging Jamie Hayter, and we had Saraya and Tony Storm beating up Britt. Any thoughts on that segment?
First, the Bunny challenging her is great. Okay, might as well. It's just got in her head. Hey, challenge, great. Let's see it. Bunny's not terrible. I've heard a lot of good stuff about her from Impact and some of the other places she's worked. Hasn't really been stellar other than like the street fight stuff and the elements where she really showed her heart and her guts, and I respect her for that. But I still don't see a lot of her wrestling ability and telling a story in the ring. So I'm hoping that against Hayter, she's going to have a really good, just interactive sort of good hard-hitting match maybe. Saraya and Storm with the attack and back on Britt Baker, starting up the faction that we assume is going to be the AEW Outsiders, the WWE Invasion, as it were. Maybe it is the new Invasion, who knows? But we see that faction developing, and there's more to it later. And it served its purpose. It was a touch confusing because it was backstage, and then they cut to the parking lot. But, got to keep the women on the same segment. You can't give them any extra time. So
right.
What about you, Mongo? How do you think how do the video packages and that kind of stuff play out live?
People just kind of watched the screen. There wasn't really like any, at least in my section, there wasn't any like real audible reactions to anything. I like the Bunny a lot. I guess I don't really have an issue with her challenging Jamie Hayter for an eliminator match, but the idea of like, if this person wins, they get a title shot. That's a great idea. But when you have like a million eliminators in a row across like every title that you can possibly challenge for, and nobody ever wins any of them, why would I have a reason to care? Why should I think the Bunny's going to win this particular eliminator match? I think it'll be a good match. Jamie Hayter is fantastic. The Bunny is good. She was starting to kind of actually get good around the time she got hurt, which I think was the street fight. And I remember seeing people on Twitter speculating she was going to retire, and if she would have had to, what a match to go out on, right?
Yeah,
but
right.
the attack on Britt Baker, you couldn't pay me to care about Saraya. I'm sorry. I wasn't a big fan of her in WWE, and
I don't think you're alone in those sentiments. Not just
this podcast.
not in this podcast and not in the Discord. A lot of us have fallen. I was a big fan of Saraya for a long time just because I was a fan of where she came from, her story, and her rise during the NXT into the main roster. I love that crap. It was great. And then she, did her thing and she got hurt and she was off TV for a number of years. I'm like, okay, but when she came back, this is why you don't come back after 7 years unless your name is Daniel Bryan or apparently Adam Copeland. Those two guys have done okay with it, but I'm sorry, Punk, his body did not stand up to what he wants to do, and it's not going to. And apparently neither is Saraya. She's already winded when she's wrestling. I don't know if she's going to be able to train up to the sufficient level that she sold herself as. And hopefully she can work with Storm and work with some of these other women who are really good and cover up her weaknesses and show some of the strengths that she originally had when she was young and upcoming and healthy and hadn't been sitting around for 6 years.
Yeah, I was hoping for a lot more out of that match. Like, Britt Baker's not going to carry anybody. All due respect, I'm a Britt Baker fan. But, like, she's not going to carry somebody who hasn't wrestled in years, right? So I kind of was hoping we were going to get that, like, 2013 NXT page out of Saraya. And I watched that match, and I kept waiting to see it. And then it never came. And I was like, oh, God, they're paying her a lot of money, and she's actually not good anymore. This is bad. But, like, Toni Storm's great. I don't think you're going to find anybody who thinks she's, like, terrible or anything. I wish they had something better for her than this. But yeah, live, like, there wasn't a lot of reaction to, like, any of the pre-tapes that were on the video wall until, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it, but the MJF and Roosh segment, that got a big reaction from the live crowd.
Okay.
But the this one, not so much. But also, I feel like I have to note this. There was no audio in the building for a little bit of this one, and then the later segment with Ruby when she goes to check on Britt. We didn't have audio for the first, like, half of that.
You know what? Neither did we. There was an audio issue throughout the whole show. It was terrible.
Okay.
Yeah, you were not alone. But again, once they finished that segment up, they came right into a fun, short, very, very short match with the Acclaim versus Truth Magnum and Turbo Floyd. Now, I saw these guys on either was Dark or Elevation, whichever one this week, and they're starting to grow on me. I know they're losers. I know they're jobbers, but they've got great names. They've really, they just kind of have this weird, goofy charisma that I'm starting to enjoy. And you need that. You need people, especially in the tag division, in the lower card, who can come out, do that presentation that really gets fans talking, because people are talking about these guys, and lose with grace to the current current AEW tag team champions, the Acclaimed, who are more over than anybody in the company. And they came out and lost, and yay for them. Then the real segment started when it was.
I wonder if Turbo Floyd, if his last name is a tribute to Brad Pitt's role in True Romance, where Brad Pitt played the stoner that was on the couch, Floyd.
Oh, right, with the honey bear bong.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. Do you have any more cleaning supplies? That was one of his lines.
I totally remember that character.
That's what I thought of. I'm like Truth Magnum, okay, Turbo Floyd. I'm thinking Floyd from True Romance. Maybe that's what he's getting at. But yeah, we had the Acclaimed in the squash, which was really just to set up the Gun Club, and Billy Gunn segment. Billy Gunn you know, they did their typical back and forth, and then, you know, as Billy was leaving because he was upset and he's sick of this feud, this matchup, kind of like I think a lot of fans are. I mean, I'm sick of the Guns. This is dragged on for so long. So Billy Gunn's walking out, and then, you know, the Guns make their comments about him being never being there, walking away like a father, and then about the pills that he was taking, and so Billy Gunn
that was such a
flips out
low
and says,
that was such a low comment, and I know obviously they talked about it and they sold it and it was good, but I don't know that they needed to go there in this show.
"Yeah, I thought it was questionable." I guess I was surprised. I was like, "Wow, you know, pill popping has led to a lot of wrestlers' deaths.
Yeah.
A lot of people." And so to kind of use it as an angle, well, maybe not the best promotional tactic.
It's as bad a taste in my mouth as when they used it as an angle in WWE for Jeff Hardy or Scott Hall in WCW.
Yeah,
You can keep going back. It is just a bad idea to use people's demons in an angle like that, even if it's your own damn son. I didn't like the segment as a result. I didn't think it was helping the Guns get over. That's for damn sure.
Right. Mongo, what do you think of this segment?
So I didn't think he was going to go there with the pills. I actually, and this is a real deep cut, people may not remember this. In like 2010, there was a woman in Winnipeg that posted all of this evidence of an affair with Billy Gunn. And I kind of was expecting to say, walk out on us like you did for that woman in Canada. So when he said the pills line, I was like, oh, Jesus, that's like a sharp 180 from where I thought this was going.
Well, I think that real life drama is a little too much. The pills, I mean, come on. That's just something that'll kill you, but a whole family. That's embarrassing.
It was like the like, oh, from the crowd was like, it got a big reaction, but I was kind of the same mind as you guys. Like, how many dudes have died of pills? Like, just you could have just said drugs in general. That's a little bit more ambiguous. Then you're not like, oh, here's all these guys who died from, like, you know, pill overdoses. It's just,
even if
I don't like the.
Even if he had said from the bottom of a alcohol bottle, you know, the bottom of a beer bottle or a whiskey bottle, I think then you would have sort of played into the trope without necessarily getting the real personal sort of nasty stuff. Now, again, you're just trading pills for alcohol and neither one is good and yada yada. But
right.
I think alcohol has been played on television more and therefore has less impact. Maybe that's why they did pills. Either way, I thought it was in poor taste.
Yeah, it was.
Any thoughts on the matchup next week? Acclaim versus Guns for the titles. Is Billy going to turn on the Acclaimed?
Okay.
Is Scissor Me Daddy not going to be a thing anymore because he's going to turn?
I want him to turn and them lose. I don't want the Guns to win, but I'm afraid they will, and I don't like it. And if it's a McMahon move to have them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how they originally got over with the New Age Outlaws. So I just they're just not ready. They're just not ready. They're just not ready. Don't give it to them.
Agreed.
The match next week just is not enthralling. The Gun Club do not do anything for me, and still they keep getting these segments.
Potential Billy Swerve does. I find that really intriguing, and why it's intriguing is, why are you going to break up the hottest act in the company? They're selling merchandise. They're a hot team. How are the Acclaim going to do without Billy Gunn? I mean, it kind of changes what got them over. It was kind of like when Hangman got real popular, when he was working up for the heavyweight title. He had that drinking gimmick, and he was drinking the beer with the fans in the crowd. I mean, COVID kind of messed all that up,
Yeah.
but Hangman dumped that, and I just felt like he has not even been close to as hot. So let's milk this angle for with Billy and the Acclaimed longer, And like, I think they could have a crazy program with the Bucks, with Billy involved and Brandon Cutler. There's so many things they could do with the Acclaimed, with Billy there. So let's not split them up. And if the Guns win the titles, I'm not gonna be happy. So I don't think that's gonna happen, but that possibility is intriguing.
Intriguing is not the word I would use, but I agree. Interest is high as a result. Now, fortunately, next was Jungle Boy talking about how he's going to do the singles title thing this year. And teaming up with Hook was good and cool, and he liked it, but nah, I'm going to go do singles thing.
Okay. So, Mongo, did Jungle Boy get a huge pop when he was talking about winning a singles title?
We actually didn't see this promo in the building. I didn't know it happened until I got home. And it was just kind of flipping through the show today to see if there was any shots of our sections. There weren't. But I was like, oh, there's a Jungle Boy promo. And my mom was like, yeah, I watched this. And I was like, we didn't.
I wonder why they added it on somehow in the broadcast and you guys got nothing in the actual arena. That's odd. I wonder what you were doing, what you had to deal with.
It was like one of those like just dead segments. If you've been to an AEW like Dynamite, they'll just play the Dynamite theme. The lights will be down. Justin Roberts is kind of in the ring, like we'll be back in 30 seconds or whatever. It's not the first time this has happened. There was a promo on the show from Columbus that I went to last August, where there was like a whole segment that we missed, and I didn't know it happened until like one of my friends was like, "So what'd you think about that?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Right.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, and that's the big difference between the live and the broadcast. Sometimes you miss some of these promos, which it's odd that they wouldn't actually air it for you in the audience. But you said it seems to happen quite a bit. That seems odd to me.
Yeah, it's weird. I've never had that happen. Granted, I haven't been to a like taped WWE show since Over the Limit 2010, but I don't remember any of those shows them doing like an angle in the back that wasn't on the big screen for everybody in the arena to see.
Exactly. And the last time I went, which probably a lot earlier than that, but for WWE I haven't been in a long time. But yeah, no, there were no dead spots like that. Just we'll be back in 30 seconds just doesn't make any sense to me because the live show is the most important to keep them engaged. So very odd.
The Jungle Boy segment fell pretty flat for me. They really need to do something with his character. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to go for a singles title now." It's like there's no gimmick, there's no psyching up for the fans or anything. He's just talking, and it's like he needs something else to get over it. I mean, I think he has a ton of potential, but he needs some help in the gimmick space to give people a reason to cheer for him. I was kind of sarcastically asking him about the pop because I just thought that promo was pretty flat. So
he's got a great song.
Yeah.
People love that song, and Fandango proved sometimes a song is all you need. Bobby Roode, Robert Roode proved sometimes a song is all you need. CM Punk had some of the best songs.
Only got over because of his song.
I don't know about only, but he definitely chose some great songs because I love freaking Living Color to this day.
Right.
All right. So after we dealt with Jungle Boy, we moved into what I thought was a pretty interesting big boy match. You had the Takeshita versus Brian Cage. And we pointed it out before that Brian Cage is about the same size, about the same height as Takeshita. And Takeshita has, he's still a big, beefy, rangy, big boned. If he put a couple of extra pounds on, he would literally dwarf Brian Cage. And there may be an inch or two difference. Cage has got muscle, but
if Takeshita had Brian Cage's workout regime, what would he look like?
Right, he'd be a monster because Cage looked kind of squat. Like he's wider than he should be. He's just sort of walking around like a turtle almost, or a crab or something. But right. He's literally the definition of swole. So he can't like put his arms down because his traps are too big. I don't think with any effort, Takeshita, if he had the same workout regimen within a year or two, with no effort would be bigger than Cage without as much muscle. Because he's just bigger framed. And he's obviously legit in the ring. Once again, what a great match from Takeshita. He did get his big first Dynamite win. It was downplayed. But the fact is, it's not something to be celebrated because he's just starting the momentum. They won't get to that story yet, but they'll keep playing in the background, I think, and let it build and be like, he's on a 4 or 5, win streak. Bring it up then, maybe. I know some people were like, man, it's his first win on Dynamite. You should be giving him some accolades from the announcers. I just think that they're going to build it a little bit later. That's my take on it. What did you think about the match overall, Mongo?
I really liked it. I've been a big fan of Takeshita for a while. He was, it's funny, a few years ago, I was like, yeah, he's all right. And a bunch of my friends who watch way more DDT than I do were like, no, he sucks. So when he came, I never understood that. And when he came to AEW, they're like, oh, God. And then he starts, he has that, crazy run before he had to go back. And it's like, yeah, I don't understand why you guys ever thought he sucked. This guy's money. Bell to bell, there's very few guys in AEW that I think are actually better than him. Big reaction when he beat Brian Cage, which is funny because he beat Brian Cage, right? That's not a gigantic name.
No,
but people
he
were
loses
happy
all the time.
People were really happy to see Takeshita win. I thought the match was great. I'm not a big Brian Cage fan and haven't been for a very, very long time, but he's really, pardon my language, busted his ass the last few times he's been on television. I don't know if he's trying to earn a contract extension or what. There was the report his deal was coming up very soon, but I was very happy with that match. That was one that I was kind of like, oh, cool, it's a marquee match when they announced it last week, but I wasn't expecting to look at my cousin after the match and go, God, that kicked ass. So I guess with Takeshita's involvement, maybe I should have been expecting that.
Takeshita, as I will continue to sing his accolades, I thought that his connection to AEW audiences continues to grow, and his responses and reactions continues to grow. He's got the language courses from somebody because he's getting better, and he continues to build his following on Twitter, which is always a positive sign when you've got that sort of following. He's going to be big. He came back, and Tony's like, okay, here's a contract. He's going to be big, and I think that some people are saying that because he's going to get a non-title match next week against MJF, that he's going to win that and then get a title shot later because it's non-title. So, of course, MJF can take that loss as his character gets no loss of momentum. Takeshita gets a huge boost. And then when it's for the title, MJF gets his win back. I think that's possible. Jay, you laughed.
I think, yeah, I mean, I just hadn't even considered that as a possibility, which was why I was kind of like, that could potentially make sense. I think Bryan would need to interfere. They're not going to let Takeshita go over MJF clean. They've put too much into him. He almost never loses. I don't know if he has. I don't know what his loss till he is in AEW, but it's probably less than 5. Just jumping back to Brian Cage, I agree with Mongo's remarks. Brian Cage has looked really good in his last couple matches. I think Brian Cage will go out there and do anything he's asked to do, and I think he is perfectly capable. One interesting match that I saw with Brian Cage over the summer was he was fighting Jack Cartwheel, a young independent guy that is a former gymnast. He's short. He's probably only 5'9", so that's short in the wrestling world, 5'8", 5'9". But he's super agile and he fits in perfectly with luchadors, like he's a 20-year vet. But anyhow, Brian Cage is fighting Jack Cartwheel, and I thought it was going to be a squash. And Cage, the match went for almost 20 minutes, and Cage let Cartwheel get all his shit in, and it was just so much fun. I do like Brian Cage. I don't think he should be pushed like a main eventer. He looks like he should be pushed like a main eventer. He doesn't really have the gimmick or the charisma to match, as Krillin would point out. But Cage, I love seeing Cage on the mid card. He just his matches generally don't disappoint.
He does put in a lot of work. He does put in the effort. Yes, he's got to get his own shit in, but he does sell. He's willing to do the job, and he looks like $1 million. I mean, there's not much you could ask for in a mid-card guy. Now, will he ever break through and become higher in the card? Who knows? But right now, it looks like if he can continue serving in the mid to lower card where he is, ROH champ, three-man tag champ, whatever they call it, the trios down there. Maybe he will get that contract. Maybe not an extension. He had that last year, and everybody, including Cage, were surprised about it. This would be an actual signing, and I think in the last year, he's really put in a lot of work to get his stock up, to really build that connection, to get that character, what little he has, over with the audience, and be that threat, be that sort of mid-card, not boss, but just like a big thug, just a big goon to overcome with your baby faces. I think he's in a great role, Yeah,
I agree. So one other thing I want to... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say he's absolutely perfect for that that kind of like an enforcer role.
Yeah.
And I also have to note this really quick. It was super cool seeing Prince Nana live. I've been a huge ROH fan since I was in junior high. Yeah. And seeing him, he didn't do the "we're in the money" bit, which would have made my whole night. But it was so cool seeing him because I love that guy. That guy's great.
It's always nice when your favorites are able to show up.
Yeah, that's a good note. I've never been into ROH very much, other than like the when they would bring the Noah guys over, when Misawa and Kobashi came over in the mid 2000s. I went to those shows and watched some ROH after that. Then Misawa passed in a couple years later, and I was like completely out of wrestling for a long time after that happened. But yeah, so Takeshita still has that dotted line back to Don Callis and Kenny Omega. As he moves forward with this program, helping out Daniel Bryan, I think there might be a turn with the MJF thing next week where Don Callis might show up after Takeshita loses to keep that storyline going, where we don't know, Takeshita's walking the line between, Don Callis and the Elite, and then there's the Daniel Bryan side of things. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with that.
Hopefully we see some callback to it, because they built it up a little bit. I know they've done it on like Dark and other segments, and hopefully it pays off. Don Callis is always a good evil hand, trying to manipulate and get in people's ears. And Takeshita, as a new rising star, would be somebody to hitch his wagon to, just like he always, like a Heyman type character, looking for that next guy to feed off of, to get the big payday with. You know what I mean? And a mouthpiece for Takeshita, a mouthpiece would actually be amazing, because he could do his English, he could do his Japanese promo, show the fire, show the emotion, and yet have Don Callis really feed the storyline and do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, it would be an interesting combo with those two, and also where they could go with Takeshita and Kenny, if because Kenny's ties back to Japan. Kenny has fought Takeshita a bunch of times in DDT. A bunch of those matches are available on YouTube, so it's real easy to go find Kenny versus Takeshita from 2013, 2014, when Takeshita was just when he was really young. So, all right, Jericho interview, the Garcia Sammy Guevara gauntlet. What do you guys think of that whole spiel for Ricky Starks?
Okay, so we know that it was going to be a while. We know that they're going to run this out for who knows how long. Didn't we see Starks basically beat Jericho already? Why does he want this match? What's his motivation? I get Jericho. Ha ha ha! I'm the heel. Defeat my minions before you face me. Every video game fighter in history has used that plot. It works. But why the hell is Starks fighting this? Why is fighting Jericho so important to him? He didn't do any... one loss because of the bat, and suddenly he's like, I'm going to risk going against all of you. I don't get the motivation.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Mongo.
So this was a segment I wish we didn't get in the building because I thought the segment sucked. I like 2.0 and then I like Garcia in the ring. The other two could get launched into the sun for all I care. I agree. I don't understand why Starks wants the match. Like, actually, Andretti should want a match with Jericho.
Yep.
I don't see why Starks should want a match with Jericho. And I get, like, they did that one really long-winded Monday Night Raw 2003 ass promo where, like, it boiled down to, like, I'm gonna knock you down a peg because I can or whatever. So maybe that's the justification for it. But, like, I don't need to see Chris Jericho, like, sucking all the life out of dudes that I actually want to watch for, like, 9 months. Like, can he just go back to the WWE, please?
Yeah, Jericho's programs run long, and that's why when he got mixed up with Starks and Andretti, I'm like, they're carrying this through all the way to Revolution, and we're going to see, some form of a match between Jericho, his JAS guys, Andretti, Starks, and maybe they'll get a couple more people involved. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. I think Jericho's. I still enjoy watching him for the most part. I like it when he teams up with Sammy and the Latex Gods. I think I always think those matches are hilarious just because of the way they work together. So yeah, I mean, it's we'll see where it goes, but yeah, I expect to see Starks and Jericho carried all the way through to Revolution in a month to get the payoff there, and hopefully they don't carry it on until the next pay-per-view, like the Blackpool Jazz thing.
I got some bad news, buddy. That's going till All Out.
No, I will rebel. We will riot in the streets. No.
Poor Ricky.
Fortunately, the next segment was our favorite, the Elite, in a basketball arena for some reason. But hey, that's because Nick Jackson's actually really good at shooting hoops. They have their little promo talking about the Acclaimed. Get to see that next week. Excited. Not the Acclaimed. Top Flight. Excited to see Top Flight against Young Bucks. And included, you're going to have Kenny and you're going to have AR Fox. Again, I'm excited to see that match. That is going to blow the doors off. And then you had the Firm come out and say, hey, how about Rampage? Okay. All right, I guess. Not for the titles, I assume. And
yeah, the graphic they showed during they do the card rundown later in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think that actually said World Trios title match because, not to get too spoilery, but I'm pretty sure they did announce it as a title match live. So I don't know if they didn't communicate that on TV or not. I was shocked when I saw the graphic that said for the titles because they never mentioned it in the promo.
Okay.
Why not? Why not make it a defense? Yeah, the segment was interesting and great to see Kenny back on TV. He's been off for a couple weeks. Some speculation on Twitter suggested visa issues. I think Observer even picked that up.
Yeah.
And then the other speculation is Kenny said he was really banged up after his 2 matches, after the ladder match and fighting Ospreay. So I think he could have used some time off anyways. So yeah, glad to see him back. Isaiah Cassidy moaning in Kenny's ear was interesting.
I can't call it funny, but it was certainly it got a reaction. It got a reaction. So kudos there.
Mongo, any thoughts on Isaiah moaning in Kenny's ear? I don't even know if you saw it.
No, we did see this. So for context, the court that they were on was the practice court for the Wright State basketball team. The Nutter Center is like their actual, like where they play their home games. I will say this: when they said next week for Top Flight and AR Fox, the crowd was like,
Yeah.
And then
that sucks.
They set up the match for Friday and everybody was happy again. And I was like, this is like being told, no, you can't, you have to wait to have ice cream, but there's like, a 3-month-old protein bar right there. Why don't you take a bite of that? The segment served its purpose. I mean, it wasn't bad.
Yeah, it was.
Right.
I mean, it was just a quick setup. I mean, it seems like a lot of the things with the Elite have been last minute over the past year or so. But yeah, we're on our way to the AR Fox thing, and I'm looking forward. I'll be watching Rampage live for sure on Friday night just to see the Elite fight. So, and Mongo already got to see it, and he won't spoil it for us, I hope. So,
No.
all right.
Fortunately, the next segment was Danielson versus Thatcher, which was an amazing wrestling match. It was some serious hard wrestling from two professional wrestlers and a little bit of sports entertainment when they knocked out the ref. But it was submissions, it was just key locks, it was throws, it was suplexes. This thing was great. And Thatcher, I don't know who he is from Adam, but if that's how he wrestles, he had a bit of a personality. He kind of went around the ring in a really unique way. Obviously, a very professional, like a mat wrestler sort of way, like stalking. But he just had a really interesting flow to his movements. I liked him against Danielson, who could make a broom look good. He looked like $1,000,000. And again, he did the job that he needed to do. He got over the arm. He worked it. And as an introduction to him as a wrestler, as one of the AEW faithful, I gotta say I like the dude. I wouldn't mind seeing more of him. Not at all. And of course, he did the job and paid off the next sort of segment for Danielson. Mongo, how do you think the match went?
So when this match was announced last week, going into the show, I wasn't really expecting a lot. The Columbus show last August was pretty much a nothing show. So when they played the video for Thatcher, I was elated. I've been a huge Tim Thatcher fan for like close to a decade now. He was basically the whole reason I watched Evolve past a certain point. And so I knew this was going to be like really hard-nosed, physical, believable, which is the word I want to stress here, wrestling. And
Just to jump in, what promotion did you say? Why you kept watching?
Evolve.
Evolve. Okay.
They did a lot of great mat work. The strikes, you could hear every single one of them. Thatcher's belly to belly is so unique in how he does it. It's almost like Excalibur called him the modern day Billy Robinson. That's not 100% accurate. The guy that Thatcher teams with in Pro Wrestling Noah, Hideki Suzuki, I would say is the modern Billy Robinson because he's the last guy that Billy trained. But Thatcher's like right there, like in that kind of stylistic lineage. He got over live. There were people chanting for Thatcher. I was among them. Nothing against Danielson, but like, when am I ever going to see Tim Thatcher live again? Right?
Hopefully soon. Hopefully he gets a job.
That was a prevailing opinion amongst a lot of the people that were in my section that had also never seen him. Like there was somebody 2 seats away from me that's like, God, I hope he gets a contract. And I was like, everybody told me Tim Thatcher wouldn't work in AEW. Like when he got released from WWE, I was like, that's like right there. AEW needs him. And people were telling me like, no, he's too boring. No, he's not. Like he's incredible. I will say I didn't like the MJF run-in and the Takeshita kind of like save, but also it was in service to an angle later in the show, so I get it. But I would have preferred like you just have like the straight up wrestling match. Danielson wins. I didn't need a ref bump, but that's like such a minor complaint, right? It was such a fantastic wrestling match.
It was.
And I mean, I could have left after that, and I would have been completely satisfied. I stayed for the remainder of the show and was glad I did. That main event we're going to talk about later, but yeah, this was, in terms of like just hold for hold wrestling, this is like top 3 match I've ever seen live.
It's an amazing thing when you get a couple of really good, not just professional wrestlers, but sports entertainers. Danielson has been at the top of the heap. He is that good, and he's got that connection to the crowd. He did the spot when they were both down. He started kicking his foot, and the crowd started clapping for him. That's just how you communicate as a wrestler to bring the audience into your match. And he's the master of that, and he knows that they're going to respond. So he helps build the pacing of the matches as a result. And
Yeah.
as an introduction to Tim Thatcher, this was fantastic and the right way to do it. Now, sure, he got a loss, but who cares? He looked like $1 million. If they bring him back, maybe they bring him back one more time, see if there's another good response, maybe against somebody else, maybe who's not as good, see if you can really pull out that skill set where is he good with everybody? And if he is, yeah, sign him. Hell yeah, sign him. He's great from what I saw against one of the best in the business, one of the best ever. So,
You know who I'm sorry.
no problem. I was just going to ramble. You were going to say?
You know who I think would be a perfect opponent if they were going to bring him back for a second look is Darby Allin. It's like a real weird like kind of pick, but I think Darby versus guys who are like obviously bigger than him because everybody is, but the guys who are bigger than him that can inflict like the harder strikes and work a more violent kind of match as again the main event. I think that would be a really good match to showcase not only Darby as like one of the best underdogs I've seen in a very long time, but also like you can showcase that Thatcher's not just the hired gun that came in to, stretch Danielson's arm or whatever, but he's a legitimate threat. Cause like how many times have we seen Darby overcome the bigger guys? What if Thatcher actually beats him with the Fujiwara armbar?
Now see, that would be getting over a brand new guy without sacrificing. It's not a burial of any sort for Darby because again, he's at a point he could take a single loss, move on, no big deal. And can you take Thatcher from that sort of momentum of beating somebody like Darby and build into a legitimate threat? Time will tell, but I really think that there's some potential, and it's exciting to see where they go. Will they book him correctly? Will they use him correctly? Or will it be another, let's wait a month or two before we actually take action on it? TK's done both.
So you mentioned Mongo. You mentioned Hideki Suzuki.
Japanese talk.
X-Kilber actually did a call out to Billy Robinson's UWF Snake Pit and said that Thatcher teams with the Suzuki, who was the last guy that graduated from that school. So I thought it was an interesting call out by X-Kilber, and the fact that you brought it up that Suzuki was trained by Billy Robinson is pretty cool.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not sure why I'm kind of surprised Excalibur called that out, but I'm glad he did. And I also just random note here. The first time I ever went to the Nutter Center, the dark match was Bryan Danielson against Chavo Guerrero. So to see him like on the main card in like a feature match, the same building 13 years later was really, really cool.
His growth,
that is awesome.
His growth from his growth from NXT to now. That's what I was introduced to him was NXT. It's been phenomenal. His playoff against MJF has been decades, and they were always good against each other. And, I just think there's a reason Danielson's called a GOAT or a BOAT or whatever rhyming acronym you want to go with. Danielson's one of the best to ever do this, and I love watching him.
Absolutely.
I love watching him. Always have. Always have. Obviously, we had the interference. Then we had the Swerve interview, which, okay, apparently he introduced the big white tattooed thug. He has a name now. Do either of you remember it?
Trench?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. It's weird. But okay. And then they apparently called out Dustin Rhodes and Pillman? What the hell kind of segment is that? Pillman is teaming with what's his name's kid, with Anderson's kid, Brock. So why the hell is Dustin and Pillman suddenly going against Swerve? Well,
Wait, Brock Anderson's back?
Brock Anderson was on Dark Elevation teaming with Pillman.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I mean, it might have been taped a long time ago, but it was either that or Dark.
Yeah, that was like 5 days ago. That's pretty cool. I didn't know Brock Anderson was back. It looks like he fought. Well, Brock Anderson has been around. No, he's fought 3 matches in AEW since mid December. So I didn't realize he was back because I don't see every Dark. I only watch it when Billy Starks is on or something.
Well, she was on this. She was on another one of
He
the.
was. He fought Velvet, yeah.
So again, you had the interview, which set something up. Swerve is he's really stalled out for me. He's not coming across well right now. He's not getting this group over. They're not doing anything dastardly. They're just standing there most of the time. He had one good spot, and it took forever. And I'll just keep waiting because I know he's got it in him, and in the ring he's freaking amazing. So we'll just see where it goes. And then we had another backstage segment with MJF versus Roosh, where, once again, paying off somebody to take care of Danielson for him. Mongo, how'd it go live?
Oh, people, when they flashed the graphic for Roosh and Bryan, there was like a collective because like that's a match we would have liked to have seen. I will say real quick on note of the Pillman thing. They were in Dayton. Pillman's from Cincinnati. This is that was a match to get Swerve on TV, I think. But the Roosh and MJF segment, people were really into that, especially when like MJF was like, "Hey, dipshit, translate." Like people were laughing. Like people liked that segment a lot. And also, I just want to note that did not look like a hallway that MJF was coming from. Like
yes.
People were joking, like, "God, was he hiding in the shitter?" like was he waiting in there to stand Roosh's briefcase? But yeah, great segment. I cannot wait to see Roosh versus Danielson. That is going to be
match,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Some people might say Roosh versus Danielson is Tony Khan bringing CMLL to AEW.
Some people might be other-minded. Other-minded. He might be disconnected from reality. He might make weird. He might make weird time travel connections. I don't know. Something's going on in that dude's head is all I'm going to say.
For those of you that aren't in our Discord, we're talking about a Discord, a member of another Discord. I don't want to name names or anything, but yeah, there's a fantasy booker who comes out with some pretty wild ideas, and so his comments will be referenced on the show from time to time.
So from that, we had MJF pay off Roosh and say, "Hey, first one's free. If you take out Danielson, rip off his arm and beat him with it, I'll give you 4 more or 5 more," whatever it was. So obviously, it's going to be a great match between Roosh and Danielson. I'm a fan of Roosh. He came in, looks like a star. He's acting like a legitimate person, not a douche nozzle. And so I enjoy his presentation. And he's doing the job. He's trying to get people over. He's working on his accent. He's got his translator with him. They're not talking about him being associated with a private party anymore, so that's good. All he's got now is Preston Vance.
You said he's not. You said Roosh is not being a douche nozzle. Was that a reference to Andrade?
No.
Okay.
Of course it wasn't. Why would I reference Andrade? Dude's still under contract, I might add. He's not doing the countdown. He's not loving life.
We'll see him again.
No.
I don't know that we'll see him again before his contract's over.
No, he's been put on ice and he will not come back.
He's on IR anyways. He's hurt. He had his surgery, so.
Well, he's still not coming back.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not after what he did to Sammy, the nerve.
Right.
I just want to jump back to the Mogul Affiliates thing with Swerve. I know, Scott, you're dying to extend our show to talk more about.
I really am.
Mogul Affiliates, but what I think is so Swerve is this stuff with Dustin Rhodes. I think they're going to be beating down Dustin Rhodes, Pillman Jr. and whoever, and I think Keith Lee is going to show up, and that'll set up the match for Revolution. Swerve versus Keith Lee. And that I really hope that happens because Swerve versus Keith Lee would be freaking incredible. Just give me a singles match with those two, and that would be awesome.
I agree that Swerve and Keith Lee have the chemistry to pull it off. Right now, Swerve hasn't connected with anybody, and I don't know that he's going to be dastardly. Yeah, he's going to get in there. He's going to get Pillman. The audience responds to him. They're still, whose house? Swerve's house. He's still got that, but I don't know. He's falling flat for me, and maybe next week if they bring in Keith Lee, maybe something will work. Did Mongo was Was that interview at all interesting?
I had kind of convinced myself last week watching Rampage that they were going to do Dustin and Swerve this week. So when he said the Pillman line, I was like, oh, God, come on.
Oh, yeah.
The one saving grace would have been you versus Dustin, but no, I'm going to watch you in Pillman. Come on. The crowd was happy to see Pillman. Like, to hear his name. They were happy to see him later, obviously, too. But I like Parker Boudreaux. I think with the right coaching, he could be very good. Because to look at him, the guy looks like somebody. But
Yeah.
I don't mean it like that. I don't mean that he looks like Brock Lesnar. I mean, like, you look at him and he looks like, like that's a guy that should be on TV.
Right, the airport test.
Yeah, basically. The other guy, he looks like a guy who would be on TV on a show called Cops, and I don't know if that guy's got any like wrestling acumen. I don't know if he's actually worked a match, but if he ends up being as bad as everybody's expecting him to be, that group's going to be dead on arrival, and I hate the idea of something like that, like being an anchor for Swerve, because he's so freaking talented.
He is good
so
in the ring.
good.
Mongo, your mic is, I don't know if you're hearing it too, Scott. Your mic's
Yeah.
hitting a little static.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I don't know if you want to, I don't know, Scott, what do you think? Plug it back, unplug it and plug it back in. I don't know if it's connection.
Jiggle the cord. Yeah, see, all you got to do is jiggle the cord half the time. Anyways,
we can cut that. We can cut that out. We'll just delete that.
It didn't go that long. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
But the next segment was the Jade Cargill match against Red Velvet, green versus red, because they have to have colored women.
Wait, what?
Don't ask. It was not worth it to go back over. You'll hear it when you edit. So the again 50-0, 49-0 going in. It was the big sell that Red Velvet could have been a contender. She knows her better than anybody. She was in her first match. They didn't mention that, but Red Velvet was in Cargill's first match with Shaq, and okay, so they did some spots. Red Velvet showed some fire, and they had the interaction with Hogan, Kira Hogan, come out and try to negate Layla Gray. So yeah, okay, fantastic. Yay, Jade. Now here's the thing that's confusing about Jade. She continues to act a little bit like a heel, but then after she wins, she gets her daughter, and the daughter's just elated, but mommy won. You can't boo that. And then you have the feat of strength where she just carries Red Velvet and throws her bodily back in. You can't boo that. I mean, and she's like 7 foot tall, and you can't boo that. So,
that was an amazing spot where she did the overhead press, walked up the steps, and then tossed her over the top rope.
Absolutely. You tell me that anybody can't do that.
Back in the day, it was like amazing when, Big John Studd would pick up some 200-pound jobber on the floor and throw him in between the second and third rope. And here's Jade just walking all over the place with someone.
Well, and then you got Warrior where you just get him in the gorilla press and drop him. That wasn't half as impressive as half of what people do now, because you got guys like Cesaro who are just stronger than they really could ever be in real life. And, he's a superhero, but he wasn't on this segment. But Jade certainly was. She is she dresses like superheroes. Again, I don't see her coming across as a babyface for much longer, as a heel for much longer. The crowd is going to refuse to boo her. They're cheering her more and more. And the longer this win streak goes on, the more impressive she is every week, the more she's able to shine. The sky's the limit. Keep the title on her for a long, long time. Get that prestige built up, because she's basically unbeatable. I called her the RVD of the TV title in ECW. And that's a whole lot of acronyms.
Yeah. Yes, it is. How was the crowd response to Jade?
Oh, she was over big time. The gorilla press spot got over like $1 million.
It's impressive.
Yeah, no, really, it is. Someone else in my section pointed out we're supposed to boo her, but she just grabbed her daughter out of the crowd. I think Jade Cargill is money. I would like to see her work more often and with more experienced people, because that's the only way you're going to get better. And she has gotten a lot better than she was obviously in the first tag match with Shaq. But I'd like to see more of her, but also I understand, like, you don't want to run the undefeated streak, or the person with the undefeated streak, you don't want to run them on TV too often. You risk turning people against them. So maybe that's part of the thought process.
Overexposure is always an issue. Absolutely. It is.
Agreed. I was kind of expecting that match to be a disaster, and it was actually just a perfectly good little match. No complaints.
Yeah, there was a story with it. There was an ending to it. It was fine, right?
Yeah.
Jay?
Yeah, I'd like to see Jade fight Emi Sakura. If she hasn't already, I'm not sure if she has. It may have been on a Rampage that I missed, but yeah, a program with Emi Sakura and Jade could probably help Jade quite a bit. And I don't think Emi would have any trouble working with Jade and making Jade look good and helping her mature a little bit in the ring. But yeah, Jade definitely needs more competition, and that takes us to the final interview segment before the main event, where Britt and Ruby Soho were talking about stuff. I didn't really even follow what was happening in this interview.
So that's because, again, there was volume issues, and it basically the crux of it was Renee came in and said, "Britt, how are you?" And then Ruby came in and said, "Britt, how are you?" And Britt looked at Ruby and said, "I don't freaking believe that you really give a shit about me. Why did you just show up now?" And so sort of building that will she, won't she with Ruby Soho and joining in with Saraya. So that's really all that segment was. It was I don't know. It made sense, I guess. Mongo, did they play that for you? I hope you didn't have to see it.
Oh, they did play it, but like I said earlier, we didn't have audio for the first half of it. So it was people talking, and I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. And the audio came back on like right when Britt started to talk to Ruby. Again, this is tied to the Saraya stuff. I don't care. Is Ruby Soho going to go with them or not? I don't care. I'd like to see them actually do something with her, though. She's very good.
Ruby Soho's not bad. She's definitely putting in the work in Dark, in Elevation. She's, worked with Willow. She got over in that. She's got a good connection with the crowd. She's an okay worker. I'm not sure this will they, won't they with her is working. The Saraya stuff is really, that's an experienced woman. You want her working with Jade? No. Jamie Hayter is with Britt. So all the top of the card, the most experienced, best people who could wrestle Jade and make her look good aren't. Because they're above the position of her title, which is the mid-card title. She's there to wrestle all the mid-card girls and try to make them look good. And that's the skill I think she's still desperately trying to learn as a dominant champ, a dominant force in trying to build the prestige of the TBS title. I think they're doing an okay job of it. I know Jade is a star. She's getting trained in the back with Bryan Danielson. There can be no better coach, and you've seen the improvement since he joined the company. She's gotten better. Her presentation's better. She's choosing her spots better. I'm a fan of Jade, and Ruby Soho and all the rest of them are really not able to interact with her as a result. So on their own, the top of the card with Jamie Hayter and all those guys, they're doing stuff with Saraya, and nobody really cares. But hey, at least Jamie Hayter gets to have a good match.
Yeah.
There you go. And that leads us to the end. The final match.
Time.
The time for the main
main
event. Oh, Mark Henry. And it was Darby Allin versus Samoa Joe for the TNT title for the last time, as Darby said. And it was the sadist versus the masochist. It was the guy who loves to murder people versus the guy who loves to die. It was the little dead kid versus the Samoan submission machine, and there were no submissions. This was thumbtacks on a hoodie and muscle busters on the wood. Violent. Once again, there's another bleed spot. Joe gets hit, broken open the hard way from a table spot.
I was going to say that did look hard way for sure.
Oh, it was. You did not plan that. But overall, I think the match obviously was amazing. These two have great chemistry. You mentioned Darby is the underdog versus the dominant guy who likes to hurt people in Tim Thatcher Mongo. That's exactly what this was. It was the large dominant guy who's putting a hurting on a guy who absolutely does not feel pain, of the Mick Foley style. And if he were a couple pounds heavier, he would just be going through everything and not feeling it, because he's skinny as shit. He's got no padding. He's got barely any muscle. He's got to feel everything, including these spots that hit him in the head, the back, and the neck. 175 pounds. My God, this dude's going to break.
How did Dayton enjoy the main event?
Oh, they were going nuts for this whole thing. Again, this was one of those matches where the crowd was standing for the whole thing, but I'll say this. It enhanced my enjoyment of the match in a weird way, because they go into the crowd, they're on the other side of the building from me, you can't really see it. They're like doing some of the floor brawling stuff. You can't see some of it, but you can hear like them hitting the steps, or like when Darby does the dive and Joe does the fuck you spot and he goes to the table. Like, you hear that, and you kind of see it too, right? But it felt like one of those like World Star fight videos of like a mall during Christmas time.
Yeah.
And the person with the camera catches just enough of it for you to see like the really wild shit going down. Cause like Darby starts like cutting the stuff up, and I was like, oh, I get to see this spot live. This is like such a like cliche spot, it feels like at this point, and I finally get to see one live. And I thought like, okay, he's gonna miss the coffin drop on that. I didn't expect a freaking avalanche muscle buster onto it. And the people behind me, there were two girls behind me that were really into Darby. And they were like, why is he cutting up the ring? You're not allowed to do that. And it was like they had never seen a no disqualification match. They were younger, I guess, probably high schoolers, so maybe this was the first, no holds barred match they'd ever seen or whatever, but they were really into Darby. And like you could kind of just feel like the air come out of them when Joe did the avalanche muscle buster.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
because like every
spot, yep.
You got to look at Darby and just how insane he is, and the walkaway spot, the whole thing about being in the crowd, all of that, it built a sense of FOMO, and like I can't see, and I really want to. It actually builds that desire. It's sort of like when you didn't get to watch the pay-per-view back in the WWF days, and they would show you clips of it, and you'd be like, I really wish I could have seen it. That is sort of the effect, I would assume, when you're in the audience, you're standing up, everybody's standing up, you don't quite get to see everything, you get a glimpse. World Star Video is a great call out. I think that it also adds an element of realism. And it draws you in, and it's like, damn, I want to see more. It was a great match with an amazing finish. Joe is, again, the king of all television, and I love that. I love Joe as a dominant double champion, and, Darby only had it like a month, and now it's on Joe again. And I think you can do that with the TV title. You're supposed to do that with something like the TV title. It's a mid-card title.
I thought the match was great. The tack jacket spots, Joe holding the table on the outside, and Darby basically gave the table a suicide dive / flying headbutt. I thought Darby cracked his head open. It seemed like his head bounced off that table pretty hard.
Probably did.
He dove onto Joe. It was a sick match that wrapped up a sick evening of wrestling. I mean, you had four matches on the show that were incredible. Almost all four of those matches, you could say they were pay-per-view level matches, just because of the bumps, the length, the spots, the drama, the excitement, the emotion. You just had 4 classics on this card. I think Mongo, I think it's awesome you were able to be there and see what I think was one of the best Dynamites we've ever had from a wrestling standpoint. It was just an incredible show.
It really, yeah. I was at Forbidden Door, so like that's kind of like my high water mark. This wasn't as good, but like that's not a fair comparison, right? Because
No.
Forbidden Door was a 5 hour. But in terms of like the TV shows I've been to, or just shows that weren't Forbidden Door, because you're never going to touch that, this was by a mile the best show I've ever seen live. Joe versus Darby might actually just straight up be my favorite match I've ever seen live, which is funny because I just said Thatcher and Bryan's like top 3. It's crazy how that happens. You get 2 of your 3 favorite matches you've ever seen live in the same night. That main event was so visceral and violent and awesome. And I'd never gotten to see Samoa Joe wrestle live. Again, I've been a huge fan of him since the mid-2000s. And when they announced him versus Darby, I was like, great, this is the perfect guy. Like I don't get to see like, one of those Samoa Joe matches where maybe he doesn't have the right opponent. Darby is the perfect opponent for Joe. Just somebody for him to victimize. Because that's look at Joe. He's what would you guess he's the best at, right? He's just good at beating the crap out of people. He's good at a lot of other things, but like chief among all of them is just give him somebody smaller. I mean, AJ Styles. How many guys did you see victimize AJ other than Joe? It's like Abyss and that's it.
Right.
Well,
Joe is going to kill you for sure.
And Joe is that big dominant monster, and I think it brings a different sort of prestige to the TNT title. Darby brought just this frenetic sort of I'm going to go 100 miles an hour and you can't stop me till I'm dead energy. But Joe brings like a kaiju, like a Godzilla energy. Like this dude is going to beat you. The typical Joe's going to kill you. I think the TNT title will allow him to be on television and show that off. And then people will be like, hey, what about him as an ROH champion? I don't think, and I hope, that Wardlow doesn't just immediately win the title. I like Wardlow. I like seeing these guys wrestle. Maybe it'll be a better match than last time. But I just don't think that Wardlow needs to win it immediately off Joe. So I hope
Agreed.
They're setting it up. They're setting up the match, and I want to see the match. It's going to be a good match. I just want to keep Joe as king of all television, keep the TNT title, keep the ROH TV title, and just keep doing that shtick.
So I gotta complain. My dreams have been shattered. I was hoping Darby would hold the title for 2 years.
Yeah.
And he would wrestle every week and win every week and go 100-0 defending the TNT title every week. But that's apparently not going to happen, so I'm just going to have to accept that and move on.
Well, you're lucky he never faced Jeff Jarrett.
Right.
Because he would Jeff would have stripped him of the title immediately. One El Kabong, and it would have been over.
Right. One guitar shot. So I think Wardlow and Samoa Joe would have been fine with the program without the title. Joe doesn't fight every week, and Joe gets hurt a lot, and I just would prefer to see someone who's going to be on TV every week with the TNT, or with basically the television title. So I'm disappointed, and I don't agree with the decision to remove the title from Darby right now. I think they could have worked an angle where Darby's next challenger came out and with some minimal interference, which led to Wardlow coming out and could set up Darby's next program with whoever that was over the title, and then Joe and Wardlow could have fought without it. Those two guys don't need the TNT title. Wardlow basically buried the TNT title when he had it because he didn't have any good matches or good programs with it. So yeah, in my opinion, I would have preferred to see things go a different direction, but I know a lot of people were happy to see Joe win again. So I'll move on.
And right, and that's the thing is I expected Darby to win. I think most of us expected Darby to win.
Yeah,
Joe winning was a huge surprise.
Yeah, AEW Games does a prediction thing. There's a contest going on right now, and like all 25 people picked Samoa Joe to lose to Darby. Nobody picked Joe to win. So I thought, there was I was like 60-40. I thought there was a chance, but yeah, a lot of people didn't think Joe had no chance of winning tonight. So.
And that's the thing is their Discord is great, but ours is better. The Elite Mark Order Discord, the link is down below. If you've stuck with us all the way until the end of this show. Thank you. You can also join us on EliteMarkOrder.com and check out wherever you get podcasts. Get us. You won't find us because we're only on YouTube right now. But you can join us on the Discord. We have a lot of great conversations. And if you show up out of the blue, we're really going to wonder where the hell you came from, because right now we just keep stealing from the AEW game Discord. We just keep finding the cream of the crop, the diamonds in the rough, and we keep pulling them in. Like Mongo, brand new guy.
And thank you, Mongo, for joining us. And we love for you to join us again. You have some great insight. It was really cool hearing your stories about your past fandom and your knowledge about Thatcher and a lot of the other stuff. So yeah, it was great having you on.
Well, it was great being on. With that said, I'll let you guys wrap up the show. It's 10:30. I gotta get to bed. I gotta open at work tomorrow. But this was a lot of fun. I'll talk to you guys later.
You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
JJ for life.